Picture a small town called Marquette, Michigan, tucked along the icy shores of Lake Superior, where the wind howls through snow-dusted pines, and the water glints like a sheet of steel under a pale winter sun. Here, in a gray-shingled house with a sagging porch, James, Jim, Harrow, and Evelyn Evie Tate lived, their 35 years of marriage a quilt of faded patches, some warm, some frayed, until, at 58, in the brittle cold of January 2023, they shattered. Not with screams or slammed doors, but with a quiet crack, like ice splitting underfoot, a moment where they looked across the kitchen table, coffee steam curling between them, and knew the threads had snapped. They'd raised a son, tended a home filled with the clatter of life, and now, in the stillness, it was over. He was a fisherman, his hands rough as the ropes he hauled, his days ruled by the lake's moods. She was a seamstress, her fingers quick with needle and thread, stitching stories into every hem. By their mid-50s, their quilt had unraveled, leaving only silence where voices once wove together. Imagine this, two people stepping out from a broken frame into a world they'd forgotten how to color, Jim with his nets, Evie with her fabric, until, by 61, they repaint their lives in hues they never dreamed, against the wild, frozen beauty of the Upper Peninsula. Close your eyes and see the meeting in 1987, under the flickering lights of a summer fair in Marquette's harbor, the air thick with the smell of fried perch and cotton candy. Jim, 23, stands by the docks, his flannel shirt rolled to the elbows, his dark beard damp with lake mist, a beer bottle dangling from his fingers as boats bob behind him. Evie, 23 too, lingers at a craft stall, her blonde hair tied with a scrap of red ribbon, her denim skirt brushing her knees, a basket of hand-sewn potholders at her feet. Their eyes catch, his a stormy blue, hers a soft green, and he ambles over, boots scuffing the gravel, offering a shy grin. They talk about the gulls screeching overhead, about his love for the lake's deep pull, about her joy in turning cloth into something alive. He buys a potholder, their hands brushing over the cotton, and asks her to walk the pier as the sun dips, painting the water crimson. She nods, her laugh a bell in the breeze, and says yes. A year later, in August 1988, they marry on a bluff above the ore docks, his wool coat stiff, her dress a swirl of lace she stitched herself, the wind tugging at them as friends toss wildflowers. He promises to anchor her. She vows to mend his days. For decades, they hold that picture steady. Now see their son, Finn, bursting into the frame in 1990, a scrappy boy with Jim's wild hair and Evie's clever fingers, tearing through the house like a gale off the lake. Jim trades midnight hauls for dawn lessons, showing Finn how to bait a hook, their breath fogging as they fish from a rickety skiff, the water slapping the hull. Evie threads her needle, teaches Finn to sew buttons, the living room a chaos of laughter and tangled yarn. In 1993, they buy the house, a weathered shingle box with a crooked chimney, a porch where snow piles knee-high, and a kitchen window framing the lake's endless gray. Jim builds a workbench, his nets and tackle spilling across it, the air sharp with fish and oil. Evie sets up her sewing nook, her singer humming, bolts of flannel and corduroy stacked like firewood, her garden a patch of marigolds, and time braving the frost. Imagine them on summer nights, Finn racing the yard, Jim grilling perch, Evie humming as she strings lights, lantern swaying, the lake a mirror of stars. Money runs lean, blizzards bury the drive, but the house glows, a canvas of their shared strokes. Feel the colors fade. By their 50s, the picture blurs. Finn leaves for Duluth in 2009, chasing engineering, his room a shrine of fishing lures and old stitches, the walls echoing his absence. The house grows still, the porch creaks lonely, the fireplace unlit. Jim heads out earlier, his boat cutting through dawn ice, his voice a grunt when he stomps home, coat crusted with snow. Rough day. Evie, lake's a beast. She sews longer, her shop downtown a refuge, her chatter thinning to murmurs as she collapses into a chair. Tough orders, Jim. Folks want fast now. He tries. Let's snowshoe press style. Feel the crunch. Or how about supper at the Veerling? But she shakes her head too beat. Maybe tomorrow. They eat apart. Him with a cold sandwich by the nets. Her with soup in the nook. The garden frozen. Their words swallowed by the wind howling off Superior. By 2021, he takes the attic. It's caught sagging under a quilt she made. The window icing over with a view they can't reach. Hear the crack in January 2023. Jim's 58, his hands knotted like the ropes he mends, his beard flecked with white under a wool hat. Evie's 58 too, her fingers stiff from years of seams, her green eyes dim behind glasses smudged with thread dust. He's just hauled in a catch. Whitefish, their scales glinting like coins. When he steps into the kitchen, snow melting off his boots, and finds her at the table, mending a coat, her coffee cold. We're not whole anymore, he says, his voice low as the lake's winter growl. She looks up, her needle paused, her breath a cloud in the chill. I know, Jim, we're just broken, aren't we? He nods, slow as ice forming. Yeah, Evie, we are. It's time to drop the net. They sit by the window, the lake a sheet of gray beyond, the wind rattling the panes, and agree, 35 years is a frame cracked through. No shouting, no tears, just a canvas too worn to mend. They part with a grip, her hand warm on his, a last knot untied. See the shards scatter. They sell the house, too heavy with ghosts, and split the money clean. Evie moves to a flat above her shop, a snug space with a slanted ceiling, her sewing machine by a window spilling pale light. Jim rents a trailer near the marina, a tin box with peeling paint, a porch chair facing the docks, a hook for his gear. Then calls from Duluth, Dad, Mom, why now, what split? They stumble. It didn't split, son, it just crumbled, they say. Friends divide. Some stay with Evie, buying her mittens, others meet Jim for beers at Blackrock's. The first year is a fog. Jim fishes in a daze, his lines taut, but his heart slack. Night spent rocking in that chair, the lake slap a rhythm he can't feel. Evie sews in a blur, her stitches tight, but her soul loose, evenings by her window, the snow a veil over a town she can't grasp. They miss Finn's trump, each other's rustle, the house has grown in a gale. Watch the colors bloom in 2024. At 59, Jim joins a snowmobile club, a flicker after a dockhand brags about the trails, his hands trading nets for throttles, roaring through the Keweenaw's powder. He skids, his balance shaky from years on water, but he holds on, hooked on the speed, the bite of wind through his parka, the snow spraying like lake foam. The pack is hardy, retirees, a young mechanic, a widow named Ruth who rides with a fierce grin and a flask of bourbon. They meet weekends, carving paths past frozen falls, the pines bowing under white, the air sharp with gas and frost. Jim buys a sled, a battered Polaris with a red hood, and rips solo one dusk, the lakeshore fading in gold as he hits a ridge. It's not smooth, but it flies, a brush stroke of thrill. Evie, at 59, takes up ice skating, blades from a rink on Front Street, her hands swapping pins for laces, gliding over Harlow Lake's ice. She slips, her legs wobbly from years at a bench, but she pushes on, drawn to the sweep, the cold kiss on her cheeks, her first spin a wobbly arc etched in frost. See them rise by 60. Jim trades his boat for a Jeep, a rugged green beast with a rack, and hauls it to pictured rocks, his sled strapped tight, the cliffs glowing red against the ice. He's not fast. Riders pass, Ruth laughs, but speed's not the point. The rush is, the snow a new tide to ride. He starts a journal, lines and trails, scribbling about divorce, tracks, and the blaze of winter light, his words rough as his old knots. Dockhands read it, then strangers, folks in Eichpeming, Houghton, a guy in Wisconsin saying, "I'm riding too." Edie sells her car, buys a sled, a teal skidoo with a hum, and schemes the trails near Negaunee, her skates in a bag, the wind tugging her scarf. She joins a painting class, brushing watercolors, lakes, pines, her hands steady with a new hue. Then visits Jim, sees the Jeep, grins, "You're racing, Dad." He sees Edie's canvas, hugs her, "You're shining, Mom." At 61, they paint in color. Jim cuts fishing days, leads snowmobile tours, trails, tales, his voice deep, his parka crusted with snow and stories. He rides to Copper Harbor one winter, camps by the lake, wakes to a dawn that fires the ice pink, his Jeep a steed on the shore. Edie scales back the shop, skates for joy, spins, loops, her painting stacking up, soul beside her seams. She sleds to Dead River Falls, watches the ice gleam, the cold sharp on her tongue. They're not rich. His trailer smells of fuel and pine, her flat of paint and thread. They're not famed. His journal has 470 readers, her art stays local. But they're Jim and Edie, vivid, alive, rebuilt. They meet once, by chance at a fair in 2026, him with a trail map, her with a painted scarf. They smile, share a laugh, part bright, two canvases in full color. Divorce at 58 shattered us, they'd say now, their voices rich. It let us repaint everything. Picture America's corners, Marquette's eyes to every frozen shore, where couples like Jim and Edie shatter every day. Gray divorces aren't breaks, they're brushes. I'm Jordan Lane, and this is Gray Divorce Diaries. Their tale is real, raw, radiant, remade. If it colors you, subscribe. Every day, a new story. People like us, painting after 55. You're not alone. Let's shade your world together.